What do you do when you need a new reading journal for the last 3 months of the year, but you still want to start a new one for the beginning of next year? Well, you go small and you start one in a traveler size notebook, or at least that's what I'm doing for my October to December reading journal. Hi, it's Erin. Let's set up a reading journal that's only going to go for 3 months. This is my previous reading journal that got me through most of the year so far. It's only got a little bit of space left in the back, and unfortunately it's just not enough pages to get me through a typical month in the way that I like to set up my reading journal, which means we're going to move into a new one from the beginning of October. And that new journal is a traveler's size, which is not a size I've ever used for anything besides my money journal before, and I don't do a lot of decorating in that, so this is going to be an adventure. This is the Compass traveler size journal from Archer&Olive. I feel like it's got perfect adventure vibes, but unfortunately, like with almost everything from Archer&Olive, this was a seasonal release. You can't get it anymore, but they do still have some nice travel-sized notebooks available, and Notebook Therapy sells some nice travel-sized journals as well, especially if you're a snob for 160 GSM paper and dot grid pages like me. Just putting my name on the nameplate page here, and then we'll get stuck into the cover page. Because this is a continuation of my reading from this year, I thought I would make it tie into my original theme that I did in my previous reading journal, so here's a little refresher of what that looked like. It was this kind of fantasy novel inspired purple and green sparkly situation, and I don't still have everything from the setup, but the things that I do have I will use, and I will introduce some new elements as well, so that it still feels like a new journal, but it also still feels like a continuation from the previous one. Traveler size journals have the same height as a traditional A5 journal, but the width of the page obviously is a lot narrower. I'm moving into this journal from a B5 journal, which is gigantic by comparison, and I thought I was going to find it really challenging to go from a huge journal to a small one, but I actually didn't find it too much of a struggle at all, at least so far. That may change once we get into the book reviews, but we'll have to see. The spread I'm working on at the moment is my lovely self-indulgent cover spread. I just really enjoy doing this kind of thing, and because I'm going to have a lot of pages to use up in this journal, if I want to finish it before the end of the year, I want to use as many of those pages as I can, so cover pages don't feel as self-indulgent in that situation. And while it doesn't serve a purpose like tracking anything or recording my thoughts about anything, it does serve a purpose in being like a fun junk journal-y exercise and also setting an intention for the journal, and I think that's very valid. But I understand not everyone's into a cover page, so if you're not a cover page person, you will find no judgment from me. As far as the supplies I'm using for this setup, as always I will have everything that I can possibly link to linked in the description in case anything takes your fancy. The sheets of washi paper with the green backgrounds and the gold embossing are from JOURNALSAY. The stained glass windows are also from JOURNALSAY. The green tape that I'm using is from MT, like the masking tape brand, but I picked that up in store at Kinokuniya when I was in Sydney last year. I will try to find alternatives to things that I can't link, but sometimes it's just not possible, so I will do my best. But I'm sure there are other companies out there making shiny green washi tape, so we'll see what we can find. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of the stuff I'm using for this setup is from JOURNALSAY. Something that I think is really interesting, when I got these stained glass window stickers, I was thinking, wow, these are massive. I am going to have trouble fitting these in my A5 journal, which is what I was using at the time. Then when I moved into the B5 journal, I thought, yes, I'm going to be able to use all those really big stickers, and here I am using 2 of them in a fairly small journal, which is surprising, but I'm very happy about it. I'm going to be using my letter stamps quite a bit for this setup, and I didn't feel like I needed a big title for my reading journal cover page here. I used these letter stamps for the cover page in the previous journal as well, so it was another little consistency kind of nod to the previous journal, and I'm using it with a gold paint marker for my stamping on this page, but we will switch to a stamp pad sometimes for some of the later pages. I'm so happy with how this cover spread is looking. Let's turn the page and move on to an essential one for me in the reading journal, which is defining my rating system. For 2024, I've been using the core pile rating method, which was devised by G from the channel Book Roast. I will leave a link in the description that is her describing the system in case it's new to you, because I feel like she will explain it way better than I could. To be honest with you, I'm not sure the core pile rating system is for me, but I've been using it for the past 9 months, and I feel like changing it for just the last 3 months of the year would mean that the books from the end of the year have really different ratings. compared to the ones for the beginning part of the year, so I don't think it's a good idea to change it so close to the end of the year, but I might do something different next year, if that makes sense. These ornate floral stamps are a new addition to my collection, and I find that they only really work well with certain ink pads. They don't work so well with my paint marker system, but I do really like them when they're used in this way. So I said I wasn't going to explain the quartile rating system because G from Book Roast can do it better than me, but I feel like I need to explain it a little bit, just surface level, in order to make the spread make sense. So the 7 categories listed on the left side each get their own rating out of 10 for each book. Then you add up all of those scores to get a number that is a rating out of 70 and divide that number by 7. That leaves you with a much smaller number that is somewhere between 0 and 10, which correlates to a star rating, which is what I'm currently writing on the right page here. I've directly taken these numbers from G from the Book Roast from her original setup. I think if I was doing it again myself next year, I might change these a little to make it a little more generous, because it's very, very hard to get a 5-star rating on this system. And I have definitely read books that I would have given 5 stars just rated on the vibes that I did not give 5 stars according to the quartile rating system, because it's just so hard to get that 9 to 10 score. Also, the original quartile rating system doesn't include a half-star or a quarter-star rating. I believe G has updated the spreadsheet to include this. I don't use the spreadsheet, I just calculate stuff myself, so I've just included those rating brackets for the half-stars here for my own journal. I go back and forth on if I want to include the quarter stars or not, but because it's just the last 3 months of the year, I think I'm just going to do the half stars and just worry about a new system for next year, rather than putting too much thought into this one for now. I don't have the best stamping technique, so I'm just cleaning up my stamping areas with a white paint marker and with some correction tape. And I wasn't totally sure how much of the page I was going to need to use up, because stamps can be a little bit erratic, so I thought I would leave decorating this one until after I'd put the important information on the page. I really wish these beautiful gold embossed papers were bigger, because they're just a little bit too small to use kind of all the way across the top and bottom of a spread. It just doesn't quite work out, so I'm going with the corners. And I'm also introducing this bookshelf washi tape as well. I just got this one recently. It's from Bloomsicle Paper Co, and it is gorgeous with its kind of copper rose gold embossing. So very witchy and magical. And so very appropriate for a reading journal, right? To have a beautiful bookshelf washi tape. That's the dream. I thought about adding a heading to this page that says rating or rating system or something like that, but I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. Like, I know what it does, and you've watched me explain it, so you know what it does, so I thought I'm just going to leave it like this. But I do keep one of my ribbon bookmarks, the one with the A&O charm, on this spread at all times, because I do need to refer back to it every time I'm rating a book. Onward to the next spread. The previous one was kind of just informational, and the page before that was the cover, so this is really the first functional page of the setup. This will just be a list of the books that I have read. It's so tricky to decide when you're moving into a new journal for such a short time period like this, whether to just use the trackers from the previous journal and switch between the two as you go through the rest of the year, or if you want to set those things up again a second time. In this case, it was a really easy decision because I have almost filled the spread that I made for this in the previous journal, so when I run out of space in that one, I will just move into this one for the overflow, I guess. This is literally just going to be a list, like number of which number book it was that I read for the year, title and author, and that's it. Sometimes I'll include the name of the series if it's a book from a series, but it's pretty dry and straightforward. I just feel like this is the easiest way for me to track my books read, is just as a written list, but I know some people prefer images and that kind of thing. You do you. This is me doing me, and apparently I'm lazy. I do always find I get really motivated setting up the new journals for the new year, so I might feel differently come my next reading journal, but for now, this is just fine. My heading for this one is just going to be books read. I feel like that's very simple and straightforward, but I didn't really leave myself a place to write that directly on the page, so I'm stamping this one on some sticker paper instead. Every time I print and cut something with my Cricut, I just take the leftover sticker paper and stick it in the back of my journals and use it for stuff like this. It's so good. It's also really handy for covering mistakes if you are also using a white paper journal like this, so I definitely recommend having some matte sticker paper on hand at all times. I also like to cut the washi tape over the center of the page so that the page can still turn really comfortably. This next spread is what I'm calling Hall of Fame, and I think I've seen other people use that name for this before. I don't think I can take credit for that one at all, but this is basically just a space to celebrate the books that I have really enjoyed reading this year, and I feel like I need this. This is a cool thing about doing a second journal for a little portion of the end of the year, is that you can kind of revise and add things in that maybe you wanted to have in the beginning of the journal, but you didn't know that when you set it up, that you've thought about it later and you're like, I wish I had this, now I can have this. I didn't include something like this in my journal at the beginning of the year because I was doing a book bracket instead, and I thought, well, that'll have my #1 read of every month, like that's enough. But my book bracket doesn't really work. I don't really like the way I set it up, so obviously I'm not bringing that one forward. I will complete it, I just think it's a bit broken and that's kind of funny. But also, like, good book reading distribution is not one per month. Like, sometimes you'll have a month where you read 3 books that really speak to you, and sometimes you'll have a month where you're like, I didn't really vibe with anything that I read this month that much. So this way I can still include those books that I loved, that I rated really high, but maybe didn't necessarily get the highest Corpal score of the month. I'm so excited to use the Hall of Fame spread, but we're moving on now to the first of my 2 book club spreads. These are another thing I wasn't super stoked with the way I set them up in the previous journal, so I'm excited to get a bit of a chance for a do-over. If you're not familiar with the Page Majors, it is my book club that I run through the channel membership program here on YouTube, so you can be a member of the Page Majors if you like. We read 1 book a month, and each book is suggested by a member of the Page Majors, and we discuss it in a specific channel over on my Discord server, which is just for channel members. And we even have a little phone call, video call chat discussion about the book at the end of each month too. It is the most fun. We'll talk more about the October book in my What I Read in September and October reading journal pages setup video coming soon. And I'm also hosting a spooky season reading challenge called the Bewitched Book Challenge for October, and there is a video about that on my channel in case you're keen to join in. That is for absolutely anyone to join. You don't have to be a member of the Page Majors Book Club. So if you're interested in either of these, the Page Majors Book Club or the Reading Challenge, I'll have links to more information about both of those in the description. Since this book club spread only has to get me through 3 months, I've kind of just divided it into quarters. I've given a space for the Page Majors logo in the top left corner, and then we'll just leave space to put a big book cover and a little bit of information about each one, like the name of the page mage who suggested the book. And I am spoiling the October read here. It is going to be Mort by Terry Pratchett, which was actually chosen by me. And the fact that I've got so much page space for each of the Page Majors books for each month means that I can print a full-size HP Sprocket print and just pop it over the top of everything here, and we're good to go. I think it's going to look really cool. I sort of want to do something like this maybe for my next reading journal too. I think I want more space for this kind of thing. I made them really small in my previous journal, but my next reading journal will not be traveler size after this one. I'm thinking of trying out a square, but we'll see how we go. I'm not sure yet. Turning the page here, I've got another book club that I want to set up a spread for, and I'm actually going to do it in the exact same way as far as page spacing, divisions kind of thing, but I'm going to decorate it a little bit differently so that they feel like different book clubs, because they are. This one's for the Literary Ladies, which is a book club that I have with some friends in my real world life. The Page Majors are my digital book club friends, and the Literary Ladies are my in-person, although we mostly have book club meetings online because we are spread out and busy. We don't exactly read 1 book to a month the way that we do for the Page Majors. We kind of just fit it into our schedules in a way that works for everyone, but it sort of averages out to about 1 a month, or sometimes 1 every 2 months. So I'm just going to use the same setup for the rest of the year, and that will do. With the Literary Ladies spread all done, it is time to turn the page one more time. This one is going to be the last spread for this video and for this journal setup, and this is for my goal for 2024. And I'm going to make my life really easy by using stamps to set this up. So this is going to be one of those cute bookshelf spreads, but instead of drawing every book on the bookshelves, I'm going to be stamping them with these excellent book stamps from the Quirky Cup Collective. I set myself a reading goal at the beginning of the year to read 100 books, which is kind of ambitious. I don't totally know if I'm going to hit it, but I'm currently on track. I'm about to go on holidays and probably won't read as much, so we'll see. But I do have a reading goal tracker page in my previous journal. It's just not that much fun to use. It's just a bunch of squares. I'll show you when we're finished setting this one up, but I just wanted to do the same thing but in a way that was more fun. And I've done a bookshelf goal tracker before and I liked it. I just was too lazy to draw all the books at the beginning of the year, so here's the solution. Stamps, amazing. I'm working out the size of my shelves and the spacing of my shelves based on the size of the stamps, and that means I'm going to have 3 shelves on the page with room to stamp my stamp books on top of those. So we'll start by drawing out the shelves. Mine are just literally 1 dot grid space tall and they go all the way across from the left to the right of the page. I love the Sakura Pigma Micron fine liners for this because they are waterproof and they don't smudge. They dry really quickly on the page, so it's a lot easier to use them with a ruler and not have the ink kind of smear around everywhere. And I'm going to put these on both the left and the right page, so I've got lots of room for books because I've got to fit 100 books on these shelves. And so begins the stamping. It is a little bit tricky to line up the books on the stamp with the bottom of the shelf. Some of my books are hovering a little bit and some of them actually become one with the shelf a little bit. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me that they're a little bit imperfect. They would have been if I drew them anyway. The trickiest part here is actually making sure that you have the right number of books on the spread if you're trying to make this a goal spread like me. If you're just doing it for funsies and you just wanted to have a bookshelf to color in, like, you don't need to worry about that, but I had to do some serious counting and maths that I've kind of cut out of the video to make sure I ended up with exactly 100 books on these shelves. They maybe aren't the best spaced because I had room for decoration on the right page but not really on the left, but that's okay. I'm honestly not that worried about it. Something that I do find really useful for this kind of thing though is to have a record of how many books kind of cumulatively you have at the end of each shelf, so from left to right, top to bottom. I'm just adding the total number of books by that point of the shelf in a really fine liner on the right side. So this is my existing reading goal with the colors for each month. I'm just going to color in these books with the matching colors and then just continue with the reading goal from there. And that is my new reading journal all set up for the last 3 months of 2024. I'm actually so excited to try reading journaling in a traveler size. I think it's going to be a little bit of an adventure and I'm going to get a bit creative with things. I'm looking forward to it. Dutch doors in a traveler size, anyone? Does it work? Waterfall tabs maybe in a traveler size? Does that work? I'm going to experiment and I'm going to find out. Let me know in the comments down below what size reading journal you're working in at the moment and what size you're considering maybe for your next one. Don't forget to check out the video about my reading challenge for October that is linked over here on the right at the top, and underneath that is a link to a playlist of all of my reading journal videos from so far this year.